Welcome to a conversation about service animals. My name is Ann Deschamps, and I'm joined by Nancy Horton. We are from the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center, and today we are going to talk about what the Americans with Disabilities Act says about service animals. We know the ADA is a comprehensive piece of civil rights legislation. Nancy, can you start by telling us where service animals fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act?
Yes, thanks, Anne. Today our focus is going to be on how the ADA addresses service animals by addressing the policies, practices, and procedures of state and local government agencies, which are covered under Title II of the ADA, and public accommodations, which are a variety of private businesses that offer goods and services to the public, and which are covered under Title III of the ADA. Now, these entities that are covered under Title II or Title III have an obligation to make reasonable modifications in their policies, practices, and procedures in order to ensure equal opportunities for people with disabilities.
Okay, so what is a service animal? How is this term defined in the law?
Well, that's a great question. There actually are two definitions under these two titles of the ADA. The U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, defines service animals in their regulations, which apply within vehicles and facilities of transportation services covered by Title II or Title III. So this would apply in a public transit system or within private transportation service providers. And DOT's definition is any guide dog, signal dog, or other animal individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. Now, the Department of Justice, or DOJ, has a definition of service animal in their regulations as well, and their regulations apply to all other types of businesses and agencies covered under Title II or Title III. So anything other than a transportation provider would be covered by DOJ's regulations. And they define a service animal as any dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability. And any other types of animals, whether they're wild animals or domestic animals, whether they're trained or not trained, don't meet this definition of DOJ's. Now, Department of Justice, DOJ, also has a specific provision in their regulations that require covered entities to make reasonable policy modifications to allow individuals with disabilities to use trained miniature horses. They're subject to certain additional considerations, however, that dogs would not be subject to, such as consideration of the miniature horse's size and weight.
Got it. Thank you. So service animals have to be trained to perform a task for a person with a disability. What kind of tasks are we referring to here?
Well, service animals can be trained to do a wide variety of tasks and work for people with disabilities. And here are a few examples. Providing physical support and help with balance and stability for people with mobility disabilities or unsteady gaits. Guiding individuals who are blind or have low vision. And this is a very traditional service that a lot of people are familiar with. Providing nonviolent protection or rescue work, pulling wheelchairs, retrieving items for individuals, alerting individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing to sounds, helping people with psychiatric or neurological disabilities by preventing or interrupting impulsive or destructive behaviors, and even alerting individuals to oncoming seizures.
Okay, Nancy, so how would an animal be trained to alert an individual to seizures?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, animals can be trained to alert people through a variety of behaviors. They can be trained to paw people and nudge people and position themselves in specific ways, or apply pressure to people to alert them to things that they are trained to perceive. So that's a great question. And animals have to be trained, including miniature horses or any type of animal that is a service animal must be trained to perform specific actions, tasks, or work. Many animals do provide comfort or companionship or emotional support or other benefits for people with disabilities simply by being present, but they aren't trained to do anything specific in support of a disability. And these are not service animals under Title II or Title III of the ADA. They may be covered by other laws, such as the Fair Housing Act, the Air Carrier Access Act, or state laws.
Okay, so the difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal is that a service animal is trained to perform a specific task for a person with a disability, whereas an emotional support animal is not trained to perform a specific task and may just provide comfort by their presence. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. Moving on, Nancy, my understanding is that the ADA states that you can ask 2 questions to an individual with a service animal about their service animal. What are those 2 questions?
That's exactly right. Covered entities can ask 2 and only 2 questions. If a person is accompanied by a dog or a miniature horse, or another type of animal if it's a transportation setting, if it's not obvious what the animal is doing in service of the person with the disability, the covered entity can ask, is this a service animal required because of a disability? And what work or task has the animal been trained to perform? And that's really all they can ask. They can't ask additional information. They can't ask for documents, certificates, any kind of proof, demonstrations, or any details about either the individual's disability or the animal's status or training. And this is very important. A lot of service animals do wear identifying gear, harnesses, vests, other items that have insignia or ID badges and things that identify them as service animals. But these are not required. It's important to remember that these kinds of certificates and documentation and things really cannot be required.
So what happens, and I'm sure a lot of people ask this, but the first question that pops into my mind is, what happens if a service animal starts behaving inappropriately?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, covered entities, agency and business operators certainly have some reasonable expectations that they can expect from service animal handlers. The care and supervision of a service animal is always the responsibility of the owner or the handler of the animal. It's not the responsibility of the covered entity. And service animals must be under control. They must be housebroken. They must be well behaved. Service animals can be excluded if they're out of control or if they pose a direct threat to health or safety. So businesses and agencies can expect service animals to be well behaved. They shouldn't be jumping on people and running around or doing any kind of threatening behavior or even just wandering unsupervised, wandering around aimlessly. People can be asked to remove animals under circumstances like that. Now, we do want to just touch a little bit on state or local laws, because there are a lot of state or local laws that address animals and service animal issues, and sometimes they are different. And so we want to underscore that if state or local laws conflict with ADA provisions, then whatever provisions are better for individuals with disabilities is what has to be followed. Individuals get the best of what's available to them. So we have a few examples here to sort of illustrate that. On the left of this slide here, you'll see a couple of examples where the ADA is better than a state or local law. For example, under the ADA, a service dog could be any breed or size of dog. So if there were a state or local law that prohibited or restricted ownership of bulldogs, for example, the ADA would override that for an individual who had a service dog of that breed. They would need to be allowed to have that. Another example is under the ADA, as we've talked about, service dogs can't be required to have certificates of their training or their status. So if there were a state or local law where a certification was required, the ADA would override that. On the other hand, on the other side of our slide here, we see a couple of examples where state law is better for people with disabilities and will take precedence. And this first example is a really common one. A lot of states have laws which recognize service animals in training and require business and agency operators to allow service animal trainers to bring onto the premises the dogs that they are training, where under the ADA, service dogs must be fully trained. Another example is, for example, if a state or local law would allow people to use any kind of an animal as a service animal, where under the ADA, other than in transportation services, animals are limited to dogs or potentially miniature horses, that's an example where the state law is better for the person, and therefore that would have to be followed in that state.
Thank you, Nancy. Where can people go to get more information?
There are some great resources available. On this slide, we're just showing a couple of images of a couple of documents that the Department of Justice has about service animals, their service animal fact sheet, and their frequently asked questions about service animals. They're really helpful documents. Both the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Transportation, specifically the Federal Transit Administration, which, as we've discussed, regulate the Title II and Title III, the different parts of it there, have lots of great information on their websites that folks can visit, and so that is a great start for finding more information.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy. This concludes our conversation about service animals. I could imagine you may have questions about specific situations or just about service animals in general. The ADA National Network is at your service. You can dial our 800 number, 1-800-949-4232, anywhere in the United States, and you'll get connected to the center that serves the state that you're calling from, where there are experts available to talk you through specific scenarios and answers questions. And we encourage you to use us as a resource. We are the Mid-Atlantic ADA Center. We serve Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. We are operated by Transcend. And again, I would like to thank you, Nancy, for joining us today and to talk about service animals. And we really appreciate it, and we hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.